On December 12, 1904, Chief Lontulu laid 110 twigs in front of a foreign commission. Every twig represented a person in his village who died because of King Leopold's horrific regime in the Congo, all in the name of rubber. Chief Lontulu separated the twigs into four piles: tribal nobles, men, women, and children, then proceeded to name the dead one by one. His testimony joined hundreds of others to help bring an end to one of the greatest atrocities in history. Beginning in the late 1800s, European countries participated in the so-called Scramble for Africa. They colonized 90% of the continent and exploited the African resources. Belgium had recently become an independent kingdom, and its ruler, Leopold II, wanted to acquire what he called a slice of his magnificent African cake. Meanwhile, he read colonial explorer Henry Morton Stanley's reports about traveling through Africa. Stanley emphasized the Congo Basin's majesty. So, in 1879, Leopold contracted him to return to the Congo. There, Stanley deceived leaders into signing some 450 treaties allowing for land use. Leopold persuaded the US and European powers to grant him the ownership of Congo, pledging to protect the free trade in that region. And on May 29, 1885, a territory more than 80 times the size of Belgium and home to 20 million people was declared his own private colony by no one it actually belonged to. Leopold lost no time in consolidating power in what he called the Congo Free State. He claimed the land, raised an army, and forced many uh, Congolese men to complete unpaid labor. Things got even worse when in 1887 a Scottish inventor re- redeveloped the pneumatic tire, creating a massive international market for rubber. The Congo had one of the world's largest supplies for it. Leopold seized that opportunity, requiring villages to meet ever greater rubber quotas. So Congolese men had to harvest these material from wild vines, and as supply drained, they walked for days to gather enough of it. Leopold's army and entered villages and held children and women hostage until the impossible quota was met. Congolese people rebelled, but Leopold's soldiers just refused to cooperate, and people used to hide in the forest and sometimes destroy the rubber vines. Leopold's army responded to resistance or failure to meet the quotas with unflinching torture and executions. Because guns and ammunition were expensive, officers ordered soldiers to prove they used their bullets in the line of duty by removing a hand from anyone they killed. However, many soldiers hunted using their guns. So, to avoid harsh penalties and an account for lost bullets, they would cut off people's hands. They also use this as a practice for punishment. So if rubber quotas weren't met, soldiers would sever people's hands and bring them to their commanders. The regime dramatically upended daily life and agriculture, causing widespread starvation and disease. Meanwhile, the king built monuments and private estates with the wealth he had extracted. Soon, people bought international attention to the horrific abuses of uh, Leopold's Congo Free State. In 1890, American journalist George Washington Williams accused King Leopold of deceit, fraud, robberies, arson, murder, slave raiding, and general policy of cruelty. And in 1903, diplomat Roger Casement wrote a report that corroborated the nature and the scale of those atrocities, and it was published in the following year. In response, Leopold appointed his own commission to investigate those accusations. They heard numerous witness statements in Congo, Chief Lons included. The report only confirmed the worst. Facing pressure, Leopold relinquished control of the Congo to the Belgian government in 1908. But this did not mean justice. The Belgian state awarded Leopold 50 million francs in testimony for his g- great sacrifice in the favor of Congo, and he died the following year. Crowds booed his funeral procession. So, for more than 50 years following, Congo remained a Belgian colony until declaring independence in 1960. That year, Congo elected its first prime minister, Patrice Lumumba. But months later, he was unseated in a U.S. and Belgium-backed coup. And in early 1961, Lumumba was assassinated under Belgian supervision. The coup launched the country into decades-long dictatorship, and around 10 million Congolese people are thought to have died during um, Leopold's occupation and looting of the Congo. Despite this devastation, calls for uh, reparations have gone unanswered. So, to this day, throughout Belgium can be found the monuments of King Leopold, which was built on a foundation of inconceivable cruelty.